Hello and welcome to another episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I want to talk about Maplecroft by Cherie Priest. This is the first in the Borden Dispatches. It's published by Rock. Copyright is September 2014, so it's relatively recent. And this is, it's about Lizzie Borden. I tend to think that most people are aware of who Lizzie Borden is. At the very least through the nursery rhyme. Lizzie Borden took an axe and gave her mother 40 whacks. When she saw what she had done, she gave her father 41. Growing up, I was very familiar with this. I'm not really sure if people today, the youngsters, are as familiar, but it's a true crime story. The Lizzie Borden thing, not this book. And it's the jumping off point for this book, because we learn at the very beginning the reason Lizzie killed her father and stepmother is because they were no longer human. They were infected with something, and they changed into something not human. And so Lizzie and her sister, her older sister Emma, live in Maplecroft. That's their home, and in the town of Fall River, Massachusetts. And there are things trying to get into their house, and there's an infection that's spreading throughout the town of Fall River. And Lizzie and Emma, and eventually the town doctor, Owen Seabury, are basically the only line of defense against whatever's coming. And that's basically what you've got going on in here. So, this is the first book I've read by Cherie Priest. I believe she's known primarily as a steampunk author. I believe Bone Crusher is probably her most famous book. And I've looked at her work before, but always had something else to pick up, so I never picked up any of her stuff. But when I heard she was doing Lizzie Borden crossed with Lovecraftian horror, I had to pick this up. And I'm so glad I did. I'm going to go back and pick up the old stuff. I'm going to pick up anything else she puts out because this was just absolutely fantastic. The story is told through a series of journal entries for the most part. Lizzie's, Emma's, Dr. Seabury's journal entries. Mixed in with that, we've got some letters and newspaper articles. And that gives us the whole story. And it's incredibly well written. I think it really captures the authenticity of late 19th century writing that may be a byproduct of the first-person storytelling. Stories written today that are set in that time period, in my experience, work better in first person. It just lends itself to that style of writing that you see in Sherlock Holmes stories or any of the other stuff that's set in that kind of time period. I have the whole Arkham Horror set of novels based on the Arkham Horror game, which of course is based on Lovecraft's writings. And I believe most of those are third person, and as much as I enjoy those, they just don't capture the same flavor and the same authenticity as this does. Just amazing characters. Lizzie is a very strong woman. Excuse me. She would have to be if she was able to kill her father and stepmother because they had changed. I think a lot of people would deny what was happening, wouldn't be able to bring themselves to do what needed to be done. Lizzie's able to do that. She's a very strong, intelligent woman. She has a secret laboratory down in the basement. She's studying anything she can because she knows now that there's something out there in the world that she needs to fight. So she's sort of a self-taught monster hunter, using science and mythology essentially to figure out the best way to defend herself and her sister and the town of Fall River from this threat. There's another character, Philip Zillikoffer, who's a professor of biology at Miskatonic University. Go cephalopods! And his journal entries start in 1893. And we're getting a little bit of a look at the past, the very recent past, as far as the story goes. And eventually his story starts catching up with the present until they sort of collide in a giant bit of shenanigans. But his journal entries add to the tension as we get the backstory. This book really ratchets up the tension as it moves along. Whether it's, again, these creatures trying to get in, or whatever it is that's affecting the town of Fall River that Dr. Seabury's trying to combat in his own way. It really builds the tension, and then this sort of offshoot story with Zillikoffer builds and builds, and then when it all comes together at the end, when it comes to a head, it's just an incredible bit of writing. Excuse me. We have Nance O'Neill, who's an actress, a friend of Lizzie's. We get some letters from her, fills in a little more. Excuse me. And there's the character of Inspector Simon Wolfe. It's a very interesting character. I can't wait to see more about him. Very mysterious character. They're all very well-rounded, three-dimensional characters. I mentioned that Lizzie is a very strong female lead. Emma is also a strong character in her own way. She's physically very weak because she's ill. But emotionally and mentally, internally, she's very, very strong. Very intelligent. She does push herself beyond her physical limits when the need arises. She has a male pen name under which she writes articles about biology, and she's in contact with Zillikoffer. Kind of how he comes into the story. I was going to say that she used this male pen name because back then she wouldn't be taken seriously as a woman trying to write these articles and conferring with university professors and such. And I was going to say, of course, that's not the case today, but sadly, especially considering some things I've read recently in the news and such, it's sad that maybe things haven't really changed that much. But anyway, so Emma's a great character. They're all just very interesting. It's very authentic. In my opinion, I'm not an expert about the late 19th century. I just know I have read things that were actually written at that time, or around that time period, and this feels like it could have been written back then. Just a really great story. I love the take. I think the use of Miskatonic University is the only really overt reference, I think, to Lovecraft and his work, but it does have that feel to it. There are things that happen in here that are very Lovecraftian. I can't really say without giving anything away. But I'm so glad that Cherie Priest wrote this and kind of brought me into the fold, because this was amazing, and I definitely want to read the rest of her work. There is a follow-up coming called Chapelwood. There's already a cover for it. I don't know when it's coming out or anything else about it. And I'm really interested in where she's going to go after what happens in here. There are big changes at the end of this book. So a real shake-up of the status quo, I guess. So it'll be interesting to see how things come together for Chapelwood. So that's Maplecroft. Just an amazing piece of fiction. Triggered by a true story, I suppose. I think Lizzie Borden, it's a fascinating, the true story of Lizzie Borden is fascinating. And this is an amazing addition to the legend now. I feel like I'm forgetting something. This is, I don't know, the fourth or fifth take, and it's late, and I've had a migraine all day, but I couldn't wait to finish this. It was really, really compelling read. So I wanted to finish it, record this review. I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. So I'll get to my rating with my new rating system. This one's going to be a little obvious, but I give Maplecroft by Cherie Priest 5 bloody axes. There you go. 5 out of 5 bloody axes for Maplecroft. So there you have it. As always, I will have a link for the book in the description below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, pronunciations, if you know how to pronounce Zillikoffer, please put them in the comments below. The comments will be open for spoilers. Just please be polite. Post a spoiler warning. Please like, share, and subscribe for more low-budget reviews. And really, if you like, just, again, it's just an amazingly well-written, great, horrific story. It's frightening. If you want to read something that's just really well written, feels authentic as far as I can tell. To me, it feels authentic. So there you go. I wasn't alive back then. I don't know. Pick it up. Check out the rest of the work. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pick up Bone Shaker very soon, I think, and dive into that. I've heard good things. And really, I can't wait for Chapelwood. And I just read about something else she's going to have coming out, and I can't remember what it was. So I probably shouldn't have even mentioned it. But check out her website, and you'll get all the news you need about Cherie Priest and more Lizzie Borden coming up. So I think that's it for the Low Budget Review Show. I'm Eric Smith, and until next time, read more books.